the House Oversight Committee voted to hold Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress. This is something that, unfortunately, we had to do. We've conducted this investigation for over a year. We've been very transparent with the American people. We've been very transparent with the media. We've published 4 substantive bank memorandums that show concerning transactions from our enemies around the world. We've referenced several hundreds of suspicious activity reports that the banks filed, very concerned about suspicious activity by the Biden family. We've heard testimony from IRS whistleblowers about the IRS and Department of Justice investigating various members of the Biden family for criminal wrongdoing. And can we get you all out, or you just be quiet while we do this interview? Everybody pipe it down. So what we saw today, unfortunately, was a stunt by the president's son to come in. This is the second time when he was supposed to be here in this room. The first time was the day we were supposed to have the deposition. He showed up in front of the Senate and had a press conference, said he was there to answer questions, then got in the car with Eric Swalwell and drove off. Today he came here. He sat on the front row, and the day we voted to hold him in contempt, he didn't bother to show up or tell anyone he was coming or try to work with us on a date for a deposition. We heard Moskowitz say that the president's son was here. He was sitting there to answer questions. When Moskowitz's time expired, I recognized Miss Green. She wanted to ask him questions, and he got up and left. So I don't know what the purpose of the stunt was, but at the end of the day, Hunter Biden doesn't set the rules for Congress. We believe that he's been given special treatment by the Department of Justice, by the FBI, by the IRS, and in each instance, he was, the investigators were told to stand down. We want to bring him in. We have hundreds of substantive questions that we want to ask the president's son about specific transactions, about specific bank violations, and about specific conversations, referencing emails, text messages, and other depositions and interviews. We expect him to come. He was held in contempt today. We passed it out of committee in both Oversight and Judiciary. That will now move to the House floor, I would assume, next week. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Will you invite him back for a public hearing?
Yes, absolutely. I've been very clear on that. I've said from day one, we want the president's son to come to a public hearing if he chooses, but the deposition isn't debatable. That he's not being treated any differently than anyone else. I know in the previous administration, many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle were quick to send subpoenas to members of President Trump's family, and they came. They honored their subpoenas. They spent hours and hours in depositions. This is an investigation that I think has a lot more substance and a lot more credibility than anything they did in the previous administration. We've heard mention of the previous president's transactions with some of his businesses. We've talked about transactions with the Biden businesses, but the problem is we don't know what those businesses are. We sincerely don't. Now, I don't think anyone in here does. If you do, I'll yield time to anyone in the press. If you can tell me what service was provided, what good was produced to any of these foreign nationals that sent millions and millions of dollars to the Biden family. So we will be more than happy to have a public hearing after the deposition.
Did you know that Hunter Biden was coming today? And since he was here, why not just question him?
We have rules. The rules say you have to notice deposition 3 days. We have rules. And they know the rules. Jamie Raskin used to be a stickler for rules until they applied to Democrats. So we're doing everything by the book. This has been very transparent. We anticipate on publishing a report at the end. I would anticipate there will be criminal referrals in that report. We don't want to do anything that's not by the book, that's not by the rules, that can be kicked out on a technicality. We're doing this the right way. As with any investigation, whether it's a congressional investigation or a legal investigation, you get to the point at the end of the investigation where you bring people in and you talk to them. That's what we want to do with Hunter Biden. We want to talk to Hunter Biden. We want to ask him questions along with Jim Biden, as well as Kevin Morris, who is sitting in here today, who, by our accounts, has loaned Hunter Biden nearly $6 million. And, those can be answered in a deposition.
Will you still be able to write your final report if there is litigation about Hunter Biden coming in to testify? And are you at all concerned about that slowing down the pace of your investigation?
Well, I mean, obviously everything they're doing is to obstruct and to slow down and to do everything they can to delay. But, you know, we're going to move forward. We're going to continue to bring people in for depositions. And if they don't come in for depositions, if they don't honor our lawful subpoenas, then we will hold them accountable. That's what just happened in this room. We held them accountable for defying lawful congressional subpoenas.
Do you have assurances from leadership that the contempt votes will go to the full House next week, as you mentioned?
We have assurances it'll go to the House, so I don't know a specific date. I would assume next week.
And have they indicated whether they're going to combine your resolution and the judiciary resolution into one package or vote on them separately?
I would say it would be one package, but I'm not sure. I would assume it would be one package, but I don't know the exact answer for that.
And what do you say to members that are calling this a wild goose chase and a waste of time?
Well, I mean, bank records don't lie. And we've produced lots of bank records. We've produced 4 substantive bank memorandums. When they said that no money has been traced to Joe Biden, that's just simply not true. Even if those were loan repayments, which they weren't, but for any sake, we'll say they were, okay? The money they used to pay the money back came from influence peddling. Those accounts, and Goldman tried to make it complicated because that's what they do in money laundering teams. Those accounts were depleted. There was no money in those accounts. It wasn't hard to trace the money. When you have a checking account that for 90 days has a balance of about $4,000 and then it gets a $200,000 wire and then that same day they write a check for $200,000, that's a pretty easy thing to trace. And that's what we did to trace the money.
Have you had any communication with Hunter's team between December 13th and now?
Have we had, I don't know.
No, and just to go right
No communication whatsoever.
And you didn't know he was going to show up?
Had no idea. When we suspected something was up, the Secret Service was in here sniffing around before the start of our committee. So we assumed something was going to happen. And that's a good question to ask the Democrats. Did they know that Hunter Biden was going to pull this stunt today? And that's what this was a stunt, a PR stunt. The last stunt, I would assume he was there to try to receive some type of pity from the American people. But look, the American people have one question. All this complicated investigation, all these transactions, there's one basic question. What did they do to receive the $24 million from our adversaries around the world? Did they stay at a hotel owned by the Bidens? Did they golf at a golf course owned by the Bidens? Did they produce a good or service that was being provided by the Bidens? What exactly did they do? And are you okay with public corruption? Is it okay if the President of the United States sells access to our enemies around the world to his family, through his family? Is that okay? I don't think it is. I don't think the American people think it is. And the American people want somebody to get answers. The IRS hasn't been able to get answers. We heard that from Ziegler. They haven't been able to get answers. We know the Department of Justice hasn't been able to get answers. We know the FBI.
कि मलक साहब मलक अमीन साहब यानी असी आम आने कि भाई वोट एक अमानत है ना, इस तरह की अमानत है तो फिर वोट ने वास्ते वोट ना अकदार भी होना चाहिए ना है। तो वो अकदार कौन है जी? मलक अमीन। वो कौन है? मलक अमीन। यानी आगे वोट एक अमानत है और फिर वोट ने वास्ते अमानतदार भी होना चाहिए ना, यानी अमीन भी होना चाहिए, यानी अमीन भी होना चाहिए ना, अमीन भी होना चाहिए ना। तू कौन है भाई? मलक अमीन। बस और मैं गल कोई नहीं करना। तो इस वास्ते और फिर तो सारे सामने मलक साहब ने कुछ चंद गला की दिया, तो बाकी ही मलक अमीन है। तो फिर इस वोट ना ख्याल करना इंशाअल्लाह। تو دعا ہے کہ اللہ رب العزت انہاں کامیاب کرے. اور
کرائے نے امام صاحب پہ آکھ دیں ووٹ دے بارے جگہ نکلا کے عمل کیتا ونجے
انشاءاللہ
تو جو حقدار ہے اس حق ملنا چاہیے. اور پھر اسی طرح جب اس حق ملے سی اور امین بنوے سی اور پھر امین ہو سی اور تو